today's video, we're going to be helping one of you with your golf swing. So I've been asking for you to send your swings in to be featured in a video and get basically a free lesson. So many have sent the swings in, so thank you. And today we're looking at Jussi. I hope I've pronounced that correctly. He sent his swing in and it was from the face on a front view. We're going to go through a little sequence that I would get Jussi to do in order to really improve that. So what do we see with his golf swing? Well, this is a great example of a golfer who doesn't move the knees and the hips as well as I would like him to. And then everything above that struggles to get organized. So we get a kind of issue down here, and then that sort of compounds itself with what happens with the upper body. So as I take a setup to this golf ball, I've just got myself a 6-iron here. If I put a couple of lines down the outside of my legs, what we see with his golf swing is, and I'm going to make this far worse than what he actually does, in his backswing, his midsection has a tendency to slide away from the target. So it shifts this way, and you can see how my hips have moved relative to that line. So that's the kind of issue that we're seeing in the lower body. But what that does is then, as I say, it affects everything above that. So if you look at my upper body angle, as I set up, I'm going to be slightly tilted away from the target, only a small amount. But as his hips slide that way, it really affects his upper body angle. Now, I only had the face on swing, but my hunch would be that if we would see this from down the line, because of that movement with the legs and because of what that does to his upper body, as he starts down, he's likely to get his hands in the club a little bit too far on the outside. His downswing is likely to be a little bit steep. May not be, but there's a good chance of that. So let's go through what we actually need to do. Now, the key thing really is for Jussi understanding how his knee and his foot need to move in the backswing. This great little drill, I got this from Steve Furlonger. You might have seen that video that I did with Steve, and he talks very much about how this left foot spins. Again, I'm going to make these movements far worse, but what Jussi does is, for me, restricts his left side too much, and as he starts to turn, he can't restrict and restrict and restrict, so at some point it kind of gives way. And if we were to look at his lead foot, it's got this almost this banking sort of movement to it, where the knee sort of moves across and the foot would sort of start to lift. What I would like him to do is feel very much that he is turning his left knee in, and notice how my lead heel is actually moving towards the target. Okay, so I'm turning my hips, and because my hips are turning on this angle, that's causing my lead knee to move down towards my right toe, and it's causing my lead heel to move out towards the target. So if I was to exaggerate that, it would look something like this. Now, I don't want him to move his heel this much, but you can see the difference. And what this movement with the heel does is it allows me to rotate rather than having this sort of banking movement, which you can see looks very, very different. Just look at how my lead knee moves in this sort of movement versus the kind of right movement.
First of all, to understand the footwork, because it's a twisting foot action.
Yep.
It's not a slide-in banking, because immediately people say, well, I'm going to make my hand path longer, I'm going to take it further back.
Yeah.
Right, and this kind of slide-in footwork, which moves the pressures to the borders of the feet, is dangerous. So understanding that if I put this kind of slide-in board, okay, and understand that my foot can twist, which then allows me to move the pelvis more centrally in my stance, and you see that there. So this is, if I bank, my pelvis goes across and around. Yeah. But if I turn, my pelvis turns in the center.
Yeah. So there's two little exercises that I want him to go through. The first one, I call this the beach ball drill. I'd love you to go ahead and do this, and you can, wherever you watch this, you can just stand up and do this. You're going to take your golf posture. Okay, and you're going to put your hands down this. And I want you to imagine there is some water and you're trying to hold a beach ball underneath that water. Now, I'm sure if you've done this in the past, you know that it's trying to be forced up and out, and you're trying to put a force down under this way. So I'm trying to hold that beach ball underwater. Now, if I took a setup, put my hands across here and made a pretty good backswing, where we've got those movements that we wanted, my upper body angle is pretty good. At the end of my backswing, I could still hold that beach ball underwater. I feel like I'm pushing downwards and I wouldn't let it pop up. If we look at what Jussi's doing in his golf swing, as he moves his legs and his upper body tilts, he gets more of this movement. Now you can see that I'm unable to keep that beach ball underwater. It would have popped out and flown in the air and it would kind of come out of the water. So there's a very big difference between what this movement is. As the hips slide, it affects the upper body. versus a movement such as this, where we feel like we can still keep that beach ball underwater. So this is a great little exercise to feel that rotation through the body, and notice how my lead foot is contributing to that. That's the first little exercise, and I always like to start, you know, these little sequences, you know, without the club and without hitting a ball, just to get an idea of what the actual movement is. Next thing, I would get a small bottle. This one is absolutely fine, and I'm going to place this really, really close to my lead heel. And what I would have Jussi do now is make some back swings where he feels like he knocks that bottle over with his lead heel. So that would look something like this. So what I'm really encouraging him to do is move his hips better, which influences his knee, which in turn influences his heel to go towards the target. Now, you know, long term, do I want him to spin his heel out? Not necessarily, but it's a great way for him to practice. So he can go ahead and hit balls that way. I would ask him to do a bit of a pause at the top to begin with. So it would be back, spin the heel, imagine he's knocking that water over, and then go through. Now you can see that's not at full speed, but it got me to organise my body better. And if we can get him to organise his body better, the club will move better. I speak about this all the time, but if you want the club to move around your body better, get your body to move better. Because if I move my body into some different positions, the golf club gets moved as well. So very often, when I see students who struggle, if I get their body moving better, their whole golf swing just looks a lot better. So there's our first two stages. He can hit balls that way and build up. But there's another thing that I would love him to do, which I think is a great thing for him to practice, to give him some real good feedback on what his body's doing. Okay, so take a look at this setup that I've got here. This is the golf ball that I'm hitting, and clearly I'm making use of the beautiful weather that I've got here in Turkey at the moment, at the Montgomery at the Max Royale. So I've got these two golf balls here on my hips and the golf ball there on my head. So if we take a look at the swing in question and kind of what we would have seen, we would have seen something like this, where the head stays on that ball, but you can see what my hips have done relative to those two balls. I've created that gap, and there's that kind of slide tipping the hip back. So something like this is great because you can just stand here, get visible feedback, real time, and you can just start making some swings. Notice how my shadow is staying right in between those golf balls. The reason I love this little exercise is because you can straight away see whether you're overdoing it, whether it feels comfortable, but actually you're just kind of reverting back to what you're doing. So I can just go ahead and make some rehearsals, and I can do this at the golf course, away from the golf course, at home, anywhere where I've got some sun or even just a light. I can start to make these rehearsals and start to build some really good ideas about what that golf swing should be like. And then if I wanted to, I could go ahead and work through to the finish. So 3 stages. Understand what the movement is, take the club away, do the beach ball drill. Give yourself a reference by a bottle outside your lead heel, get that foot spinning like Steve showed us in that video, and then give yourself some feedback with, you know, your shadow on the floor. It's a stage process that allows you to really understand what you're trying to do and take it into a full golf swing. The ultimate scenario is that he hits balls at full speed, and from face on, everything looks perfect, everything looks organised. I'm going to try my best to demonstrate. And just see, I hope that helps, and if you want your golf swing featured, feel free to email it over to me. Just email it to chris@chrisryanGolf.com. That'll come through to me, and then just in the title, just make sure you put YouTube swings. That just lets me know that you're okay with me using your videos in a YouTube video, and you might be featured in a future video.